So maybe we get kicked out of Red Rock before we even get started.
Romi's here.
This car will literally, it will kill you. If you are, kind of stupid with the throttle, you're dead. If you take a turn wrong, you're dead. If you go too fast and you let off the gas because the car actually hunkers down and then it kicks forward, it'll kick you forward, spin you out of the turn, and you're dead.
I don't know what was that?
Like a things like bang, bang, bang. Yeah.
I love driving and BSing about classic Porsches. So how great would it be to take a killer road trip in an old 911 and visit a bunch of my best friends who love the same things? Oh, and while I'm on the trip, I thought I'd make a TV show about it. So let's drive the coolest cars on the best roads with the greatest people in America. I'm John Polnik, and you're coming with me on my Porsche road trip. Today on the road trip, Romi from The Romi Show will teach me how to act.
The most important thing about filmmaking is to capture the emotional context of the emotional moment emotionally. You feel me?
We'll jump over a speedster, and we'll see about a thing. All in this episode of Porsche Road Trip with me, John Polnik.
We love these cars. I ain't no collector. You drive them things and I might respect ya.
The Sin City, Las Vegas. You've probably visited here for the glitz and glamour of the Vegas Strip. Most of the people who live here, like I do, aren't from here. Many left behind the high cost of living in the coastal cities. Others came chasing dreams of hitting it big at the casinos or getting their name in lights. There are no shortage of lights, but stars come and go. For a car guy, there's no better place to show off a bitchin' classic than the Las Vegas Boulevard. And for the rising star of his own TV show called The Romi Show, one of my very best friends, Romi Mirza, the Strip isn't just a place to cruise, it's a place he calls home. In the middle of the summer, triple-digit temperatures are common. Will that stop Romi from showing off his 2.7 mid-year 911 on the Strip? Not a chance.
I have 6 Porsches. Yep. Ranging from GT3 RS, GT3, GT2 RS. I have a 1986 930 turbo. I have a 1979 930 turbo, and of course, Duty Brown, my favorite by far.
I put the needle down, heaven in the sound, a record always playing. The music sets me free, it's some melody, for me it's just...
So I learned to drive stick on a 1979 930 turbo. Monday through Friday, boarding school. Friday, you get home, 3 o'clock, it's awesome, you want to go and party. My parents would go out for dinner. They always went out, every night that we were home on the weekends. So it'd be me and my brothers home, and my older brother would just send me up. He'd be like, go get beer and cigarettes. I'm like, okay. I would get in the car, no license. My parents didn't know, they were gone, they were out at dinner with their friends, and drive up to the store and get it. It's hilarious. And I did it not just once. I used to do it every weekend. And I was super overconfident. My friends thought I was nuts. First of all, you're breaking the rules. They're all like, you can't break the rules. I'm like, of course you can. They're just rules. And I would take them out of the car and, I'd drop the clutch and do burnouts. And, the car is a rocket ship, so it's really, especially back then, it was very fast. But the way I look at it is the law is written down by somebody on a piece of paper. And they write it down, they're like, oh, this is the law. And it's like, come on, it's all made up anyway. So 25 years later, I'm looking at this car in my dad's garage, and it's rusting and it's dilapidated. And, Porsches need to be driven. They're the kind of cars where the gasket seals need to be heated up and they need to be driven, especially the older models. They're air cooled, they need to be driven. So there was a lot of oil leaks, a lot of problems, and I thought to myself, I've got to fix this thing up. I knew it needed a full rework, and my favorite part was, my dad goes, do you think you can fix the antenna on the roof? And I was like, Dad, yeah, we'll take it off, He had no idea what we were doing, like the full restoration. And I've touched every nut, every wire, every single piece of leather, all the entire engine from the crank all the way up to, you know, the turbo intercooler. I built it all. It's a piece of me in there, and it's a piece of my dad in there, and it's awesome. So he flew out to Vegas, and he walks up to the car, and I've never seen him like this. You know, he's a very distinguished man. He's done a lot with his career and his life, and he was shaking like this. Like he couldn't believe it. He was like, oh my God. Like he could barely drive the car. I got him in there and he was shaking. I'm like, you okay? And he's like, I can't believe what you've done. I can't believe what you done. He was speechless, which is rare for him. And my mom is happy because the air conditioning works. You know, when I drive Duty Brown, it's like driving the old 930. I mean, obviously it doesn't have the same amount of power, but it's still a stick. It's still 4 on the floor, you know, really stiff clutch. And, you know, the engine's in the back, and it's got that smell and the nostalgia. I feel like I'm a little kid again driving the car. I feel like the same way I feel when I drive my dad's Porsche. You know, I'm falling in love with that car more because not only does it have such an immense amount of character, it's perfectly restored by Porsche. They didn't replace anything, they didn't do anything silly, they just made it so it's a classic car. And it looks the way it did when it came off of the, you know, the factory floor in 1974. When the tape player comes to the end of the track, it spits it out at you, like 100 miles an hour. It goes across the whole car. It's great. It's fantastic. I love it. Oh, I drive all my cars, completely. I'm a driver, always been so, you know, and I think if you buy these cars, you should drive them. See, people buy Ferraris and Lamborghinis to look at. You buy a Porsche to drive it. Yeah, real drivers buy Porsches.
Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a city in the middle of a desert, but really, living here is like living on an island. The moment you go out past the last patch of newly minted track homes at the edge of the desert, you find yourself in a sea of sand. There's nothing for at least 100 miles or more in any direction. Everything in this city, like an island, must be shipped in. There's no food grown here, not much is built here. It's all gotta come in by plane, train, or automobile. Another thing we really don't have here but can't be shipped in is twisty roads. The pavement in Vegas extends in straight lines to nowhere in every direction. Yes, that's an alien. After all, we're not far from Area 51. Yeah, the lack of twisty roads is a bummer here in Vegas, but one thing we don't lack is dirt roads. And those can be almost as fun, especially in an off-road Porsche like this Cayenne with a 6-speed transmission. It's not a classic Porsche though, so I thought we'd find something a little more appropriate. Right now I am standing in front of a Porsche Type 181, which most people would actually go, no, that's a Volkswagen thing. And usually they'd be right, except that this is kind of a unique thing, literally.
Back in the 70s, most people know that Porsche and Volkswagen were much more tied together when it came to marketing and you know, the dealerships were one building. You had a bunch of Beetles on one side of the building, and over on the other side of the building you had a bunch of, you know, 911s and 356s. That's just the way it was back in the day. In the 70s in particular, they really started working together on developing engines and developing cars together, and it was really the marketing department in Stuttgart that decided what a car became at the end of the day. For instance, everybody knows the Porsche 914 in America. That started out, that was supposed to be a Volkswagen. And it wasn't until they realized that the Deutschmark, in comparison to the American dollar, they would had to have sold the 914 as a Volkswagen at the same price point as like a 911, which would have been a pretty big challenge for Volkswagens to sell that high a price, given that Beetles were a couple of $1,000s. So the marketing department said, let's go ahead and sell it as a Porsche. And they actually sold it as a Porsche Volkswagen in Europe.
Ach, der Romi hat mich angephont und er hat gesagt, wir brauchen dich für einen Film, hat überhaupt nichts anderes gesagt, nur dass die wollen mich für einen Film machen. Die doofen Amerikanische, die wollen mir nur zu sprechen, ich brauche überhaupt nichts was sagen, die wollen nur, dass ich Deutsch spreche. Ich denke, es ist für Porsche, aber ich weiß überhaupt nichts.
At the same time, in the 70s, in America, cars were selling really well, gas was cheap, and off-road vehicles were a big thing. So what they were thinking is like, well, why don't we make this vehicle and we'll compete directly with the Jeep CJ. I mean, it's brilliant. It's going to be less money. We've already got it developed. It's based off of a vehicle from World War II, just like the CJ was. You know, it really did make a lot of sense.
Well, der Fascination ist, das ist ganz falsch. Das soll die Fascination sein, aber die in Englisch ist die und die wollen das nicht machen. Und die denken alle, die doofen Amerikanische, das ist das Fascination von tot zu sein. Ach.
At the same time all this is going on, in America, in a town called Auburn Valley, Nevada, which is outside of Las Vegas, there was one of these Volkswagen Porsche dealerships. The owner of that particular dealership, he had spent time in Germany during World War II, like a lot of guys did overseas, and he knew what the Kugelwagen was, and he always loved it. And when he heard that Porsche was developing this thing, he was like, sign me up. I want to be one of the first ones that has this vehicle. You know, they're out in the desert, there's a lot of off-roading going on out there. He was like, yeah, this is going to be great. Sound familiar with, you know, I mean, now Porsche sells Cayennes and Macans. How many of those do they sell?
Ich bin hier für 2 Stunden, 2. Und die haben überhaupt nichts gesagt, was ich hier machen muss. Über alles haben die keine Trinken mehr gebracht. Diese dumme Amerikanische, die wissen überhaupt nichts von Porsche. Die sollten nur ein Fahrrad treten in die Straße. Warum bin ich denn hier?
So they put that same engine that they developed for the 914, they put it in the Type 181. They changed the suspension. It has a 5-speed transmission. They gave it a really nice, you know, gauge package and all this extra stuff, thinking that they'd be able to sell that in America and everybody would want it. They put it all together and they announced that they're going to do this to all the Porsche Volkswagen dealers in America. And the Porsche dealers are like, are you kidding? What? No way. So it kind of got the kibosh from America. But this is one of the first times where it was really America that kind of drove what the marketing was going to do. So all that said, we all know that the Volkswagen Thing came out in 1973, was released in America as the Volkswagen Thing. But before they got to that point, and while all this stuff was going on, they actually built 5 Porsche Type 181s. And this is the only one we know of in the world.
Ja, ich denke, die wollen mir nur, dass ich ein bisschen Deutsch spreche. Die wissen überhaupt nicht, was die machen. Aber was soll ich sagen? Die sind doof. Diese doofe Leute. Die machen, dass die Porsche ist. Das Automobil ist keine Porsche, aber die machen, dass es ein Porsche. Die sind so doof.
When our good friend back in Auburn Valley, Nevada, when he heard that they weren't going to do it, he made such a stink. He was so upset that he demanded the factory at least send him one. So as a gesture from Porsche to our guy in Nevada, said, all right, we'll give you one. And so it made its way to Nevada. 40 years later, I'm making commercials for what is now just a Porsche dealership. It's not a Volkswagen dealership anymore. The current owner, it was his grandfather who was the one who was so excited about this car. The family has an amazing collection of collectible cars, and they have this huge warehouse full of these things. I saw under a tarp the silhouette that was pretty unmistakable, and we went over there and I pulled the tarp off of it expecting to see a thing, and I saw the Porsche on the side, and I saw some of the other things, and I lifted the hood and it was different underneath, and I'm like, what in the world is this? And that's when I heard the story. The Porsche brand is like an onion. When you start to peel away the layers, you get one layer and you find some amazing story about some rare car. And then you get deeper and deeper. And every time you find an amazing story like this and you go, you know, if you were making a movie trying to make something up, you couldn't make something like this up if you tried.
And now a teaching moment with the professor.
In 1970, Porsche offered 3 performance packages with the new 2.2-liter 911, the T, the E, or the S. The E model, slotted between the T and the S, was originally conceived as a comfort model, supplanting the 911L from 1968. One of the E's most distinguishing features is the front suspension. Hydro-pneumatic struts were introduced on the E model, designed to take the place of the shock absorbers and torsion bars and to give much greater comfort. Most of these suspension systems have been converted to standard shocks, as the replacement for hydro-pneumatic units was cost prohibitive. Whether T, E, or S, the 1969 through 1973 long hood, long wheelbase cars are some of the most sought after and valuable of the early Porsches. My advice to you, get a long hood. It will love you forever. Professor approved.
Even when I'm not on the road filming a classic Porsche TV show by myself, I'm usually on the road shooting some Porsche-related film for some classic Porsche thing somewhere. So when I am home, it's never for long. What's the event going on, Mikey?
It's a 914 rally.
So there's a big 914 rally in LA this weekend, and I got some help. Mikey's going to come with me. We're going to take his 914 right there. We have a lot of stuff that's got to fit in that car. Even though I've been by myself on most of this trip, you may have noticed a common face behind the scenes. That face belongs to my good friend and colleague, Mikey Patrickwood. There's no one I know who's more down for the classic Porsche lifestyle than Mikey. He's game for just about anything classic Porsche related. Oh, and it's supposed to be about 105 degrees through the desert. Mikey, how's that AC work?
What AC?
Yeah. So off we go on a 200-mile journey across the desert heat in a 40-year-old car. What could go wrong? We're in Studio City. We're looking for a parking spot. This old 914, the starter isn't working so well. One of the glamorous things about making a TV show about classic Porsches is that classic Porsches don't always start. So we're gonna have a little bit of a, yeah, well, the tacos were good. Okay, here we go. Before I head back out on the road trip, I've got a big project that needs to be finished. So here I am at our studio in the Las Vegas Arts District. You know, last year we got asked to present at the Porsche Classic Roundtable in Germany. So we fly over there and we find out that they're asking a bunch of the Porsche Classic partners from all over the world, including us, to make a Porsche Classic commercial. You know, to sell Porsche Classic parts, because that's what Porsche Classic is for. You know, it made me think, there's one thing that I like almost as much as old Porsches, and that's old Porsche ads. They're the best! Kills bugs fast. It's as fast as you can go without having to eat airline food. Ugh. Honestly now, did you spend your youth dreaming about someday owning a Nissan or a Mitsubishi? Or my personal favorite, I don't get it. Anyways, now we're making a Porsche Classic commercial, and of course, we had to do it Vegas style. We call it Saving Souls. When you spend weeks on the road by yourself driving a classic Porsche across the country, your mind can wander. That's why we call this part of the show Road Trip Ramblings. Is the world really split up between dog people and cat people? I think it is. And it's particularly so in the Porsche world.
One thing I've noticed hardtop fans say is that cabs suck, but I have never noticed a cabrio fan say that coupes suck. Now, to be fair, most drop top fans will say that they prefer them over the hardtops, but hate a coupe? That'd be nonsense. So why do coupe people have such a binary worldview? I have a theory. I think it's because coupe people are cat people. Now, I don't mean that they like cats over dogs. What I mean is that, like cats, they choose to confine themselves into small spaces and peek out at the world safely from inside their insulated little boxes. Dogs, on the other hand, well, I mean, have you ever seen a dog in a car? The first thing they're gonna do is stick their head out the window. Dogs want the world right in their face, and they can't get enough of it. Dogs are at their happiest when they're with their people. And I guess when you think about it, they also like to eat poop. The official Area 51 is back there behind those moonlights. Where's our hitchhiker from? Sweden? Sweden. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so we did the Naruto run and I ate shit. I broke my wrist, so there's that. If you're a lawyer that specializes in interstellar lawsuits, give me a call. I'm an idiot.